The unlikely encounter. The forest was alive with an eerie, otherworldly glow. Towering trees with luminous veins stretched high into the sky, their light reflecting off the mist that blanketed the ground. Ethan Walker, the young human engineer, carefully stepped over twisted roots and strange, pulsating plants. His ship had crash-landed just beyond the forest's edge, but his scanner indicated strange energy readings coming from deep within. If he could harness whatever was producing the energy, he might be able to repair his ship and escape this alien world. The air hummed faintly, and every now and then, he felt a strange warmth brush against his skin, as if the forest itself were alive and watching him. Ethan couldn't help but feel uneasy. He had read about this place, a forbidden zone for humans. It was said that no one who entered ever returned. Yet, curiosity and desperation drove him forward. As he pushed through a cluster of bioluminescent vines, he stumbled into a clearing. The sight before him froze him in his tracks. Standing in the center of the clearing was a figure, tall, slender, and radiant. Her skin glowed faintly, a soft blue that seemed to shift with the rhythm of her breathing. Her hair, a cascade of silvery strands, shimmered as though woven from starlight. She was clearly not human. Ethan's heart pounded. He didn't know whether to run or stay perfectly still. The alien girl turned slowly, her large, almond-shaped eyes locking onto his. There was no hostility in her gaze, only curiosity. She tilted her head, observing him like one might study a strange artifact. "Who are you?" Ethan managed to croak out, his voice barely above a whisper. The alien girl stepped closer, her movements graceful and almost hypnotic. Ethan instinctively backed up but tripped over a root and fell to the ground. She stopped a few feet away, her glowing eyes studying him intently. "You're human," she said softly, her voice musical and filled with wonder. "I've never seen one up close." Ethan blinked, surprised that she spoke his language. "You know about humans?" The girl nodded, crouching down so they were at eye level. "We've heard of your kind. You're different from us. Fragile, but strong in ways I don't understand." She hesitated, then reached out a glowing hand toward him. "Wait," Ethan exclaimed, holding up his hands. "What are you doing?" "I won't hurt you," she said, her voice reassuring. "I'm just curious." Before Ethan could protest further, her fingers lightly touched his arm. A jolt of warmth shot through him, spreading from the point of contact. His pulse quickened, and a shiver ran down his spine. It wasn't painful, but it was unlike anything he'd ever felt before. The girl pulled her hand back, her glowing skin dimming slightly. Her eyes widened in surprise. "What just happened?" "Your body, your energy, it changed when I touched you." Ethan stared at her, struggling to find words. I don't know. Maybe it's just a human reaction. Our bodies are sensitive to touch, I guess." She frowned, clearly unsatisfied with his explanation. "No, this is different. Your energy, it responded to mine. That's not supposed to happen." Ethan sat up, brushing dirt off his jacket. "Look, I don't even know what you're talking about. I'm just an engineer, not some energy expert. I'm here because my ship crashed, and I need to fix it. I didn't mean to trespass." The girl stood, her glowing skin brightening slightly. "You shouldn't be here. This forest is sacred to my people. If they find you..." She trailed off, her expression growing serious. Ethan felt a chill run through him. "If they find me, what?" "They'll see you as a threat," she said quietly. "Humans aren't welcome here. You need to leave before it's too late." Ethan scrambled to his feet, his eyes scanning the forest nervously. "Trust me, I'd love to leave, but I need that energy source your forest is hiding. Without it, I'm stranded." The girl hesitated, her glowing eyes flickering with uncertainty. "If I help you, my people will call me a traitor. But if I leave you here, you'll be caught." Ethan met her gaze, his voice firm. "I'm not here to harm anyone. I just want to survive." For a long moment, the girl said nothing. Then she let out a soft sigh. "My name is Lyra," she said, "and if I'm going to help you, you need to trust me." Ethan nodded cautiously. "I'm Ethan. And thanks, I guess." Lyra gave him a small, almost hesitant smile. But before they could say more, a faint hum echoed through the clearing. Her smile vanished instantly. "They're coming," she whispered, her glowing skin dimming as she grabbed his arm. "Stay quiet and follow me." Ethan had no time to ask questions as Lyra pulled him deeper into the forest. The hum grew louder, accompanied by flashes of light in the distance. Ethan's heart raced. Whoever, or whatever, was coming for him, he wasn't ready to find out. As they disappeared into the glowing forest, Ethan couldn't shake the feeling that his life had just changed forever. Understanding the spark, Lyra led Ethan through the maze-like forest, her glowing hand gripping his wrist firmly. The faint hum of approaching patrols grew louder, and Ethan's heart thudded in his chest. His breathing was shallow, and every snap of a twig beneath his boots sent a surge of panic through him. Lyra's glowing skin dimmed, as if she could will herself to blend into the shadows of the forest. After what felt like an eternity, they came to a stop in a small hollow surrounded by towering trees that pulsed faintly with light. Lyra motioned for Ethan to stay silent and crouched low, her glowing eyes scanning the area. Ethan followed her lead, crouching beside her, though his legs trembled with exhaustion and fear. "Do they know we're here?" he whispered, his voice barely audible. Lyra didn't look at him, but nodded slightly. "They'll sense the disturbance in the forest. The energy changed when you touched the ground." Ethan frowned. "What do you mean the energy changed? I don't even know what kind of energy you're talking about." Lyra finally turned to face him, her expression a mix of curiosity and concern. "You don't feel it. The forest is alive, human. It's connected to everything here. Every step you take, every breath you draw, it shifts the balance." Ethan blinked, trying to process her words. "I don't feel anything except fear and exhaustion." Lyra tilted her head, studying him like a puzzle she couldn't quite solve. "That's strange. When I touched you, I felt something unique. It wasn't like the energy of my people or the forest. It was wild, untamed, and yet familiar." Ethan rubbed the back of his neck, feeling self-conscious under her intense gaze. "Look, I'm just a guy trying to fix his ship. I don't know anything about this energy stuff." Lyra's glowing eyes narrowed slightly. "Maybe you don't, but your body does. When I touched you, your energy responded to mine. It's as if your very existence is tied to something ancient, something my people don't understand." Before Ethan could respond, a faint vibration ran through the ground, making the bioluminescent plants tremble. Lyra's expression hardened, and she grabbed Ethan's arm again. "We can't stay here. They're getting closer." They began moving again, this time more cautiously. Lyra led him to a small, natural cave hidden beneath the massive roots of a glowing tree. The air inside was cool and damp, and the faint glow of the tree's veins cast eerie shadows on the walls. Lyra gestured for Ethan to sit, and he collapsed onto the ground, his legs finally giving out. "We should be safe here for a while," she said, sitting across from him. Her glowing skin pulsed softly, a rhythm that seemed to mirror her breathing. Ethan leaned back against the rough wall of the cave, his mind racing. "Why are you helping me? You said your people would see you as a traitor." Lyra hesitated, her glowing eyes flickering. "Because you're not like the others. Most humans who come here are aggressive, destructive. They don't care about the forest or my people. But you're different. I can feel it." Ethan let out a bitter laugh. "I'm not here to make friends. My ship crashed, and I'm just trying to survive." Lyra shook her head. "It's more than that. The forest wouldn't react to you this way if you were just another human. There's something about you, something that connects you to this place." Ethan frowned, frustration bubbling up inside him. "I don't know what you're talking about. I'm just an engineer. I fix things. That's it." Lyra leaned forward, her glowing eyes intense. Then why does the forest respond to you? Why does your energy resonate with mine? It's as if it recognizes you. Ethan opened his mouth to argue but stopped. Deep down, he couldn't deny that he felt something strange the moment he entered the forest. It was subtle, like a faint whisper in the back of his mind, but it was there. I don't know, he admitted finally, his voice quiet. Maybe it's just some weird reaction. Maybe humans aren't as different from your people as you think. Lyra considered his words, her glowing skin dimming slightly as she fell into thought. Maybe, she said softly. Or maybe there's more to your kind than we've been told. Ethan sighed, leaning his head back against the wall. Well, if you figure it out, let me know. Right now, all I care about is finding a way out of here. Lyra looked at him for a long moment before nodding. I'll help you. But if my people catch us, they won't just punish me, they'll kill you. Ethan swallowed hard, his resolve hardening. Then we'd better make sure they don't catch us. Lyra gave him a small, almost sad smile. You're brave, human. Foolish, but brave. Outside the cave, the hum of the patrols grew louder, their lights flickering through the forest like searching eyes. Ethan felt a cold knot of fear tighten in his chest, but he pushed it aside. For better or worse, he was stuck in this strange, glowing world, and Lyra was his only hope of surviving it. The hidden truth. The cave was eerily silent except for the faint hum of the glowing tree veins above them. Ethan leaned against the rough stone wall, exhaustion threatening to pull him into sleep, but his mind was too restless. Across from him, Lyra sat cross-legged, her glowing skin dimmed to a soft shimmer as if reflecting her deep thoughts. What is this place, really? Ethan finally asked, breaking the silence. It doesn't feel like just a forest. Lyra's gaze snapped to him, and for a moment, she seemed reluctant to answer. Finally, she sighed. It's not just a forest. It's the heart of our world, what we call the lifeblood. Every tree, every plant, every creature here is connected through the energy of the forest. It's what gives my people our strength, our abilities. Ethan frowned, leaning forward slightly. Abilities? You mean the glowing and the weird energy stuff? Lyra's lips curved into a faint smile. It's more than that. We can sense the flow of life around us, manipulate it to a degree. It's how I shielded us from the patrols earlier. But you? She paused, her glowing eyes narrowing. You disrupted the flow when you arrived. The forest reacted to you in a way it's never reacted to anyone else. Ethan rubbed the back of his neck, feeling a mix of unease and curiosity. You keep saying that, but I don't know what it means. I'm just an ordinary human. Ordinary. Lyra echoed, her voice tinged with disbelief. No human has ever caused the forest to behave this way. When I touched you earlier, it felt as though the lifeblood recognized you, like you were a part of it. Ethan shook his head. That doesn't make any sense. I've never been here before. I'm just an engineer from Earth trying to fix a broken ship. Lyra's gaze softened, her curiosity giving way to something deeper. Maybe it's not about you as an individual. Maybe it's about your kind, humans. There's a history between us, but it's been buried for generations. Ethan raised an eyebrow. What kind of history? Lyra hesitated, glancing toward the cave entrance, as if expecting someone to burst in at any moment. When she spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper. There's a legend among my people. It speaks of a time long ago when another race, one very much like yours, walked this world. They were allies to my ancestors, but something happened. A betrayal, perhaps, or a great disaster. The details are vague, but the lifeblood remembers. Ethan leaned forward, his heart racing. You're saying humans might have been here before. That we shared something with your people. Lyra nodded slowly. It's possible. The lifeblood doesn't forget, even if we do. And now, for the first time in centuries, it's reacting to someone like you. That can't be a coincidence. Before Ethan could respond, The faint hum of approaching patrols reached their ears. Lyra stiffened, her glowing skin brightening slightly. "They're close," she whispered. "We need to move." Ethan followed her out of the cave, his pulse quickening. The forest seemed even more alive now, the glowing plants shifting and swaying as if guiding them. Lyra moved with practiced grace, her steps light and silent, while Ethan struggled to keep up without tripping over the tangled roots and vines. As they made their way deeper into the forest, they stumbled upon something unexpected. In a small clearing, half buried beneath glowing moss, stood a massive structure. It was unlike anything Ethan had ever seen, a monolithic stone covered in intricate carvings that pulsed faintly with the same light as the forest. "What is this?" Ethan asked, stepping closer to the structure. Lyra's expression was one of awe and fear. "An ancient relic," she said softly. "We call it the Echo Stone. It's said to hold the memories of our ancestors, but no one has been able to unlock its secrets." Ethan reached out to touch the stone, but Lyra grabbed his arm, her glowing eyes wide with alarm. "Don't. It's dangerous." But as soon as she touched him, the stone began to glow brighter. A low hum filled the air, and the carvings started to shift and change, forming symbols that Ethan couldn't read but somehow understood. It was as if the stone was speaking directly to him. "What's happening?" Lyra asked, her voice trembling. Ethan shook his head, his hand still hovering over the stone. "I don't know. It's calling to me." The hum grew louder, and a wave of energy erupted from the stone, knocking both of them to the ground. Ethan's vision blurred, and for a moment, he felt as though he were floating. Images flashed before his eyes. Alien landscapes, towering cities, and a race of beings that looked eerily similar to humans working alongside Lyra's people. When the vision ended, Ethan gasped for breath, his body trembling. Lyra knelt beside him, her glowing skin dimmed to almost nothing. "What did you see?" she asked, her voice urgent. Ethan struggled to find the words. "I saw us, humans and your people, together. We were allies, partners, but something went wrong. There was a war, I think, and then everything fell apart." Lyra's expression darkened. "If the lifeblood remembers that, it could mean we're more connected than I thought. But if my people find out you've awakened the Echo Stone, they'll see you as a threat. We have to leave now." Ethan nodded, still shaken by what he had seen. As they fled the clearing, the weight of the revelation pressed down on him. He wasn't just a stranded engineer anymore. Somehow, he was tied to a forgotten history that could change everything. Escaping together. The forest seemed darker now, as though the energy around them had shifted. The glowing plants dimmed, and the once faint hum of patrols became an ever-present drone, echoing through the air. Ethan followed Lyra as she moved swiftly, her glowing form a faint guide in the labyrinth of towering trees and pulsating vines. The vision he'd seen from the Echo Stone still lingered in his mind. Humans and Lyra's people working together, only to be torn apart by war. It raised more questions than answers, but now wasn't the time to dwell on them. "We're not safe here," Lyra said, her voice low but urgent. "The energy surge from the Echo Stone will have alerted the patrols. They'll know someone has activated it." Ethan stumbled over a root, barely managing to catch himself. "How is that even possible?" "I didn't do anything. It just reacted to me." Lyra glanced back at him, her glowing eyes narrowing. "That's exactly the problem. It shouldn't have reacted to anyone. The Echo Stone has been dormant for centuries. Whatever you did, it's drawn the attention of the lifeblood. And my people." Ethan opened his mouth to argue, but the sound of rustling leaves and faint voices silenced him. Lyra froze, her body tense, and motioned for Ethan to do the same. The voices grew louder, accompanied by the distinct hum of alien technology. "They're close," Lyra whispered. "Stay quiet and follow me." She led him off the path and into a dense thicket of glowing vines. The plants seemed to part for her, as though recognizing her as one of their own, but they tangled around Ethan, slowing him down. Lyra noticed his struggle and reached back to touch his arm. The vines loosened immediately, retreating as though repelled by her energy. "How are you doing that?" Ethan asked in a hushed voice. Lyra didn't answer immediately. Her glowing skin flickered, a sign of her concentration. "The forest listens to me," she said finally. "It's part of the bond we share with the lifeblood. But with you," she hesitated, glancing at him. "The forest doesn't seem to know whether to trust you or fear you." Ethan frowned, the weight of her words sinking in. "Great. That makes me feel so much better." Before Lyra could respond, a bright beam of light pierced through the trees, sweeping dangerously close to their hiding spot. Ethan ducked instinctively, his heart pounding in his chest. The patrols were using some kind of scanning device, and it was getting closer. "We can't stay here," Lyra said, urgency lacing her voice. "There's a safe zone deeper in the forest. If we can reach it, they won't be able to track us." Ethan hesitated. "And how far is that?" "Far enough that we'll need to move fast," she replied, already pulling him to his feet. "Come on." They sprinted through the forest, the glowing plants brushing against them like ghostly hands. The patrols were relentless, their lights cutting through the darkness, accompanied by strange, guttural voices. Ethan could feel the energy of the forest shifting around him, almost as if it were alive, and watching their every move. As they ran, Ethan couldn't help but notice how effortlessly Lyra navigated the terrain. She moved with a grace that seemed almost supernatural, her glowing skin illuminating the path ahead. He, on the other hand, stumbled over roots and vines, his breaths coming in ragged gasps. "Are we close?" he asked, struggling to keep up. "Almost," Lyra replied, her voice steady despite the tension in the air. "The safe zone is protected by the lifeblood. The patrols won't risk entering it." Ethan didn't fully understand what she meant, but he trusted her. He had no other choice. Just as they reached the edge of a small clearing, a loud crack echoed through the forest. Ethan turned to see a group of alien soldiers emerging from the shadows, their weapons glowing with the same pulsating energy as the forest. Lyra stopped abruptly, her glowing skin brightening as she stepped in front of Ethan. "Stay behind me," she said firmly. The soldiers raised their weapons, their voices harsh and commanding. Ethan couldn't understand their language, but the hostility was clear. One of them stepped forward, pointing directly at Ethan. "He's not a threat," Lyra shouted, her voice sharp and commanding. "Let us pass." The soldier hesitated, his weapon still aimed at Ethan. Then, in a sudden burst of movement, Lyra raised her hand, and a wave of energy erupted from her body. The glowing plants around them came to life, their vines snapping out like whips and entangling the soldiers. The air crackled with power as Lyra's energy surged, creating a shimmering barrier between them and the patrols. "Go," she shouted, her voice strained from the effort. Ethan didn't need to be told twice. He ran, his legs burning with the effort, but he didn't stop until he was sure the patrols were far behind. When he finally turned back, Lyra was there, her glowing skin dimmed but her expression resolute. "You didn't have to do that," Ethan said, his voice shaking. "You could have left me." Lyra shook her head. "I told you, I'm not like the others. And if the lifeblood chose you, there's a reason. I won't abandon you." Ethan felt a strange mix of gratitude and guilt. He wasn't sure why she was risking so much for him, but he was beginning to realize just how much danger they were both in. The forest, the patrols, the Echo Stone. It was all connected, and he was at the center of it. "Let's keep moving," Lyra said, her voice softer now. "The safe zone is close. We'll figure out what to do once we're there." Ethan nodded, following her once again into the glowing depths of the forest. Whatever lay ahead, he knew one thing for certain: his life would never be the same. Forbidden Connections, The safe zone was unlike anything Ethan had seen before. It wasn't just a part of the forest. It was the forest's heart. Massive trees spiraled into the sky, their trunks glowing with a golden light. Streams of energy ran through the ground like liquid fire, pulsing in sync with an unseen rhythm. Ethan felt the air hum against his skin, a strange mixture of calm and tension. Lyra led him to the base of one of the great trees, her glow dim but steady. "We'll be safe here for a while," she said, sitting down and motioning for Ethan to do the same. Ethan dropped onto the soft, mossy ground, his body aching from the constant running and tension. "What is this place?" he asked, looking around in awe. "It feels alive." Lyra nodded. "It is. This is the lifeblood's core. The energy here is so strong that even my people don't come here often. It's sacred." Ethan leaned back against the tree, feeling its warmth seep into his skin. "Sacred or not, I'm just glad we're safe. For now, at least." Lyra studied him for a moment, her glowing eyes thoughtful. "You don't feel it, do you? The connection?" Ethan frowned. "The connection. To the forest. To the lifeblood," Lyra explained. "It's alive, and it's trying to reach you. Even now, it's curious about you." Ethan shook his head. "I don't feel anything. Just tired and confused." Lyra sighed, sitting cross-legged in front of him. "You're different, Ethan. The forest feels it, and so do I. The way the echo stone reacted to you, the way the vines obeyed you when I touched your arm. It's not normal. Humans shouldn't have this kind of connection to the lifeblood." Ethan ran a hand through his hair, frustration bubbling up inside him. "I didn't ask for any of this. I'm just trying to survive and get back home." "I know," Lyra said softly, "but you're part of something bigger now. The lifeblood doesn't choose lightly." Ethan leaned forward, his elbows resting on his knees. "What does that even mean? The lifeblood choosing me? I don't get it." Lyra hesitated, her glowing skin dimming slightly as she searched for the right words. "The lifeblood isn't just energy. It's consciousness. It remembers everything, every life, every death, every moment. When it reacts to someone, it's because that person is tied to its memories. Somehow, you're a part of its story." Ethan let out a bitter laugh. "Great. I'm a footnote in a glowing forest's diary." Lyra's lips twitched into a small smile. "It's more than that. You're not just part of its past. You're part of its future. That's why it's protecting you, even now." Ethan stared at her, his mind racing. He wanted to argue, to tell her she was wrong, but deep down, he couldn't shake the feeling that she was right. Ever since he'd entered the forest, he'd felt different. The whispers in the back of his mind, the strange warmth, the way the echo stone had spoken to him, it all pointed to something bigger than he could understand. Before he could respond, Lyra leaned closer, her glowing eyes intense. "There's something else," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "When I touched you earlier, it wasn't just the lifeblood reacting. It was me." Ethan blinked, startled. "You?" Lyra nodded, her glowing skin flickering as if reflecting her unease. "My energy reacted to yours. It's not supposed to happen. My people are taught to control our energy, to keep it separate from others. But with you, it's different. It's like my energy recognizes yours." Ethan felt a flush rise to his cheeks, though he wasn't sure why. "What does that mean?" "I don't know," Lyra admitted, her voice tinged with frustration. "It's forbidden for my people to connect with others this way, especially humans. If the council finds out..." She trailed off, her expression darkening. Ethan's heart sank. "Then why are you risking this? Why help me at all?" Lyra's gaze softened, and for the first time, Ethan saw a hint of vulnerability in her glowing eyes. "Because I believe there's a reason for all of this. The lifeblood, the echo stone, you, it's all connected. And if helping you means breaking the rules, then so be it." Ethan was silent for a moment, unsure of how to respond. He wasn't used to being the center of something so monumental. He was just an engineer, a fixer, someone who solved problems and moved on. But now he was part of something he couldn't fix or escape from. "Thank you," he said finally, his voice quiet but sincere, "for believing in me, even when I don't believe in myself." Lyra smiled faintly, her glowing skin brightening slightly. "You're welcome, Ethan." The moment was interrupted by a sudden tremor in the ground. Ethan shot to his feet, his heart pounding. What was that? Lyra stood as well, her glowing skin dimming. "The patrols. They're trying to disrupt the lifeblood's flow. If they succeed, this place won't be safe anymore." Ethan clenched his fists. "Then we can't let them." Lyra nodded, her expression resolute. "You're right. But if we're going to stop them, we'll need to work together." Ethan met her gaze, determination replacing his fear. "Then let's do it." As they prepared to face whatever came next, Ethan couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning. The forest, the lifeblood, the connection he shared with Lyra, it was all leading to something bigger. And for the first time, he was ready to face it head-on. Defiance and sacrifice. The forest trembled beneath their feet, its glowing veins dimming and pulsing erratically. The lifeblood, which had once felt serene and powerful, now seemed fragile, disrupted by the approaching patrols. Ethan stood next to Lyra, his pulse racing as he watched her glowing form brighten and dim, her energy rippling in visible waves around her. "They're trying to sever the lifeblood's connection to this part of the forest," Lyra said, her voice tense. "If they succeed, it won't just stop protecting us. It will wither and die." Ethan clenched his fists, the weight of the situation pressing down on him. "What can we do to stop them?" Lyra turned to him, her glowing eyes filled with determination. "The patrols are using energy disruptors, devices that interfere with the lifeblood's flow. If we can destroy them, the forest will recover." Ethan frowned. "And how exactly are we supposed to do that? I don't have any weapons, and I'm pretty sure I can't punch a disruptor into submission." Lyra's lips twitched into a faint smile despite the tension. "The lifeblood is our greatest weapon. It's alive, and it will fight back if we guide it." Ethan raised an eyebrow. "Guide it? You mean like how you controlled the vines earlier?" Lyra nodded. "Exactly. But this time, it'll be more dangerous. The disruptors are protected by soldiers, and they'll attack the moment they see us." Ethan hesitated, the reality of the situation sinking in. He was just an engineer, not a soldier. But as he looked at Lyra, standing strong despite the risks, he knew he couldn't back down. She had risked everything to protect him. And now it was his turn to do the same. "All right," he said, his voice firm. "Let's do this." Lyra led him through the forest, moving with a sense of purpose that Ethan envied. The patrols weren't far. Their harsh, guttural voices echoed through the trees, accompanied by the mechanical whine of the disruptors. The air grew heavier with each step, the lifeblood's energy fluctuating wildly. When they reached the edge of a small clearing, Lyra stopped and motioned for Ethan to crouch beside her. Through the thick foliage, Ethan could see the disruptor, the sleek, cylindrical device emitting a pulsing red light. 4 alien soldiers surrounded it, their glowing weapons trained on the forest. "Here's the plan," Lyra whispered. "I'll distract them while you disable the disruptor." Ethan blinked at her. "Wait, what? How am I supposed to disable it?" "Use the lifeblood," she said simply. "Focus on the connection you felt earlier. The forest will respond to you if you let it." Ethan opened his mouth to argue but stopped when he saw the determination in her eyes. She believed in him, even if he didn't believe in himself. With a deep breath, he nodded. "All right. I'll do my best." Lyra gave him a small smile. "That's all I ask." Before he could second-guess himself, Lyra stepped into the clearing. Her glowing form brightened, drawing the soldiers' attention instantly. They shouted in their harsh language, raising their weapons, but Lyra didn't flinch. Instead, she raised her hands, and the forest seemed to come alive around her. Vines shot out from the ground, wrapping around the soldiers' legs and weapons, forcing them to fight back. Ethan took the opportunity to slip around the edge of the clearing, his heart pounding. As he approached the disruptor, the lifeblood's energy buzzed against his skin, almost as if urging him forward. He placed his hands on the device, feeling its cold, metallic surface beneath his palms. "Come on," he muttered, closing his eyes. "Work with me here." At first, nothing happened. But then, he felt a faint warmth spread through his hands, followed by a surge of energy that made his whole body tingle. The lifeblood was responding, just as Lyra had said. Focusing on the connection, Ethan imagined the disruptor shutting down, its energy fading into nothingness. The red light on the device flickered, then dimmed. The disruptor let out a high-pitched whine before falling silent, its power completely drained. Ethan opened his eyes, a mix of relief and disbelief washing over him. "I did it," he whispered. But the moment was short-lived. One of the soldiers had broken free from the vines and was charging toward him, weapon raised. Ethan froze, his mind racing, but before the soldier could reach him, Lyra appeared in a blur of light and energy. She slammed into the soldier, her glowing form radiating power as she knocked him to the ground. "Ethan, run," she shouted, her voice fierce. Ethan hesitated, his instincts screaming at him to help her, but he knew he would only slow her down. With a heavy heart, he turned and ran, the forest guiding his steps. The lifeblood seemed to pulse around him, creating a path through the chaos. When he finally reached a safe distance, he stopped and turned back, his chest heaving. The clearing was bathed in light as Lyra fought off the remaining soldiers, her energy shining brighter than ever. For a moment, she looked invincible, a true guardian of the forest. But then, the light dimmed. Lyra staggered, her glow flickering as one of the soldiers struck her with a blast of energy. Ethan's heart sank, a wave of fear and guilt crashing over him. "No," he whispered, his fists clenching. "I can't leave her." Summoning every ounce of courage he had, Ethan ran back toward the clearing. The forest seemed to respond to his determination, the vines and roots shifting to clear his path. As he reached the edge of the clearing, he saw Lyra on the ground, her glowing skin dim but still alive. "Get away from her," Ethan shouted, his voice filled with a ferocity he didn't know he possessed. The lifeblood surged around him, its energy flowing through his veins like fire. Vines shot out from the ground, wrapping around the remaining soldiers and pulling them away from Lyra. The forest roared to life, its power overwhelming the intruders until they were forced to retreat. Ethan dropped to his knees beside Lyra, his hands shaking. "Lyra," he said softly, "are you okay?" Her glowing eyes fluttered open, and she managed a faint smile. "You used the lifeblood," she whispered. "I knew you could." Ethan felt tears sting his eyes as relief flooded through him. "Don't scare me like that, okay?" Lyra's smile widened slightly. "You're stronger than you think, Ethan. Never forget that." As the forest settled back into its natural rhythm, Ethan helped Lyra to her feet. They had won this battle, but he knew the fight wasn't over. The patrols would return, and the lifeblood secrets were still waiting to be uncovered. But for now, they had each other. And together, they were ready to face whatever came next. A new understanding. The forest pulsed with a steady rhythm, as though it were alive and breathing with relief after the disruptors were destroyed. Ethan and Lyra sat in the sanctuary of the lifeblood's heart, their bodies weary but their spirits unbroken. The golden glow of the forest cast long shadows around them, illuminating the remnants of their struggle. Ethan leaned back against the base of a massive glowing tree, his chest rising and falling with exhaustion. Lyra sat beside him, her glowing skin flickering faintly as she recovered from the intense energy she had expended. "You saved me back there," Lyra said softly, breaking the silence. Her voice carried a mix of gratitude and awe. You didn't have to come back, but you did. Ethan glanced at her, his expression serious. Of course, I came back. You risked everything to help me. How could I just leave you behind? Lyra's glowing eyes studied him, their brightness reflecting an emotion Ethan couldn't quite place. Humans are complicated, she said, her tone thoughtful. Your kind is fragile, yet you have this unrelenting strength. I don't understand it. Ethan chuckled softly, despite the weight of the situation. Trust me, we don't understand it either. We just do what we can to survive. Lyra looked away, her gaze drifting to the glowing streams of energy coursing through the ground. You're more than that, Ethan. The lifeblood doesn't just connect to anyone. It chose you for a reason. Ethan sighed, leaning his head back against the tree. I'm not sure I'm ready to know what that reason is. I didn't ask to be part of this. Lyra turned back to him, her expression gentle. None of us choose the paths we're given, but we can choose how we walk them. The lifeblood has a memory of your kind, and now it has you. Maybe you're the bridge between our worlds. Ethan frowned, the weight of her words pressing on him. A bridge. What am I supposed to do? Bring humans and your people together. They'd tear each other apart before they even started talking. Lyra's gaze softened. Perhaps, but you've shown me that humans aren't the monsters my people believe them to be. If I can change, maybe others can too. Ethan was silent for a moment, his mind racing. The visions from the Echo Stone still lingered in his memory. Images of humans and Lyra's kind working together, building something incredible, only to have it all destroyed. The thought of repeating that cycle was terrifying, but the possibility of breaking it was hopeful. So, what now? Ethan asked finally. We can't stay here forever. The patrols will come back, and I doubt they'll stop just because we beat them once. Lyra nodded, her glowing skin brightening slightly as her strength returned. You're right. We need to leave the forest and take the Echo Stone's knowledge to someone who can help. Your people might have the answers we need. Ethan raised an eyebrow. You want to go to human territory? You know they're not exactly friendly to aliens, right? Lyra smiled faintly. Neither are my people. But if there's a chance to uncover the truth, it's worth the risk. Ethan couldn't help but admire her courage. She was willing to defy everything she'd been taught, risk her life, and trust someone from a species her people considered enemies, all for a chance at something better. He nodded, a small smile tugging at the corners of his lips. All right, let's do it. Before they could move, the ground beneath them trembled again. This time, it wasn't the patrols. The lifeblood's energy surged, and a faint glow enveloped Ethan and Lyra. The forest seemed to speak to them, not in words, but in emotions and images. Ethan saw flashes of ancient cities, towering structures powered by the same energy that flowed through the forest. He saw humans and Lyra's kind standing side by side, their hands raised in unity. Lyra gasped, her glowing skin pulsing with the forest's energy. It's showing us a future, she whispered. A future where we work together. Ethan's heart raced. Or a warning, he said grimly. If we don't stop this war, everything will be lost again. Lyra nodded, determination hardening her features. Then we can't fail. As the vision faded, the lifeblood's energy settled into a steady pulse, as if offering them its blessing. Ethan stood, extending a hand to Lyra. Let's go. If we're going to do this, we need to start now. She took his hand, her glowing fingers warm against his. Together, she said firmly. They stepped out of the sanctuary and into the forest, their path illuminated by the lifeblood's golden light. The journey ahead would be dangerous, filled with uncertainty and enemies on both sides. But for the first time, Ethan felt a sense of purpose, a reason to fight for something greater than himself. As they disappeared into the glowing forest, the lifeblood pulsed gently, a quiet reminder that their actions would shape the future of both their worlds. Whatever challenges lay ahead, Ethan and Lyra would face them together, united by a bond that transcended species, history, and fear.